Welcome to Life Stories, where real emotions meet unforgettable journeys. Today's story is about love, betrayal, and the kind of strength you only find after everything falls apart. It's the journey of a man who lost everything he thought mattered, only to discover what truly does. If you've ever been hurt, left behind, or forced to rebuild from rock bottom, this one's for you. Subscribe now to Life Stories to begin today's powerful story of redemption, resilience, and the quiet strength that changes everything. Let's begin. I still remember the sound of her laughter echoing from the bedroom that evening, the kind of effortless, melodic sound that once made my chest swell with love. Back then, I thought I had everything. I was 32, a lead architect in Manhattan, driven by purpose more than profit, and married to Savannah Blake, a woman who, for years, had been the center of my universe. We lived in a high-rise penthouse overlooking the Hudson. To the outside world, we were picture perfect, refined, successful, beautiful. But perfection, I've learned, is a masterful illusion. That night, I was tightening the knot of my tie in the mirror, preparing for the Worthington Foundation Gala. My reflection looked calm, controlled, but my thoughts were elsewhere, on the community center I'd been pouring my heart into, a space designed for the underserved kids in the Bronx, a place where they could be safe, dream big, and feel seen. Darling? Savannah called out from the bedroom, her voice laced with impatience. The gala starts in less than an hour. Are you ready, or do I need to go alone? Again? I stepped into the room. There she was, perched on the edge of the bed, dazzling in an emerald evening gown, her golden hair cascading in waves down her back. She barely glanced up from her phone. Almost ready, I replied, slipping on my watch. I might have to leave early. The center's team needs an update on the zoning permits. Her fingers paused over her screen. Jackson, these charity projects, they're always important. But tell me, when do they ever pay off? I smiled softly. They pay off in lives changed, Savannah. That's worth more than any return. She didn't respond, just hummed and returned to her screen, her attention already back on whatever new social update caught her eye. On the drive there, I noticed her gaze linger on a passing Bentley. We were in my modest BMW, comfortable and clean, but not flashy. That's who I was. I never felt the need to broadcast my worth. But that glance, it told me she might have been longing for more. Or maybe just something else. The gala was in full swing when we arrived. Glittering chandeliers, Manhattan's elite sipping champagne. Savannah slipped into her element like a fish to water. Air kisses, compliments, laughter at inside jokes. I stood quietly by her side, content to observe, until a voice cut through the crowd like a knife. Jackson Reed, came the booming voice. The man building community playgrounds while the rest of us build legacies. Carter Langston. Tall, confident, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my car. His father, Victor Langston, followed behind him, stone-faced, polished, cold. The Langstons were old money, the kind that ruled through silent boardrooms and exclusive clubs. I extended a hand. Some of us believe in giving back, Carter. How noble, he replied, his eyes never quite smiling. Then he turned to Savannah. Mrs. Reed, you look breathtaking. Valentino, yes? Most men wouldn't notice the detail. Then again, most men don't know how to appreciate quality. Savannah lit up. She laughed, a little too brightly, and adjusted her hair. I told myself it was harmless, just networking. That's what she was good at. Then I stepped away to take a call. When I glanced back, Carter leaned in closer. His voice, low, intimate, floated through the air. Your husband's a good man, but you deserve someone who thinks bigger. I wanted to believe it meant nothing. I wanted to trust her. But something had shifted. In the weeks that followed, Savannah drifted further away. Her calendar filled with social lunches and exclusive viewings, most of them hosted by the Langstons. She stayed out later, talked less, smiled even less than that. And I kept working, convincing myself that once the community center opened, everything would go back to the way it was. One evening, I came home early with dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant, L'Atelier, a peace offering, a small hope. But there she was, already dressed up. I've got plans, she said, not even surprised to see me. The Langstons are hosting a property showcase. I smiled, hollow. That's the same one Carter mentioned at the gala. Don't start, she sighed. It's just business. It's networking. But I miss us. Maybe if you spent less time building centers for people who will never thank you and more time building your career, I wouldn't have to network so much. And with that, she was gone. That night, I sat in silence, staring at the dinner reservations in my hand. The candle I never lit, the wine I never poured. I thought we were building something together, something real. But brick by brick, it felt like it was falling apart. I didn't know it then, but that night was just the beginning. The first crack in the foundation I had believed was unshakable, and when the truth finally came crashing down, it would leave nothing untouched. The autumn wind had a bite to it that evening as I left the construction site. The community center was ahead of schedule, steel bones rising against the dusk skyline like a promise. But as I sat in my car, watching the last workers pack up, that promise felt hollow. I'd spent weeks pouring everything I had into the project, hoping it would anchor me, remind me who I was. But home didn't feel like home anymore. Savannah was always gone. Events, dinners, silent explanations. The woman who once called me her safe place now barely noticed I existed. On impulse, I stopped at her favorite bakery and picked up a chocolate eclair, thinking maybe, just maybe, we could talk like we used to. The penthouse was quiet when I stepped in. Dim lights, no sign of Savannah. Then I heard the soft buzz of her second phone, the one she said was only for work emergencies. It had been left on the counter, the screen glowing. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The first message hit like a freight train. Carter, miss you already? Same time tomorrow? Savannah, last night was amazing. Jackson's working late, his loss. There were more. Photos, hotel receipts, jokes about how clueless I was. And then this. Carter, we'll handle the prenup. Just keep playing it smart. The pastry box slipped from my hand, crashing to the floor. I don't know how long I stood there, reading, absorbing, unraveling. When she walked through the door minutes later, shopping bags on her arm and a soft hum on her lips, she froze. Her eyes fell on the phone in my hand. Jackson, she started, her voice tight. I can explain. How long? I asked. She didn't answer. How long, Savannah? She laughed, cold and brittle. Long enough to know what I've been missing. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there, stunned. We built a life together, I said. Dreams, a future. Your dreams, she snapped. Your future. While I'm stuck playing housewife in last season's Gucci, you're off building playgrounds for strangers. So this is about money? It's about ambition, about living like I deserve to. Carter gets that. You never did. Get out. She blinked. Excuse me? Pack your things and get out of my home. She disappeared into the bedroom and came out minutes later with a bag already packed. Of course, she had it ready. My lawyers will be in touch, she said over her shoulder. Try not to let your bleeding heart bankrupt you. The door slammed, and just like that, my marriage ended with the same sharp click it began. A few days later, I received a call that would change everything. Jackson came the voice, deep, commanding, familiar despite the years. Dad, Richard Reed, we need to talk. About Savannah, about Carter, about how it ends. 15 years of silence, broken in one breath, and for the first time I realized this wasn't just personal, it was war. When I stepped into the penthouse office at Reed Global, it felt like walking into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline like a painting. My father, Richard Reed, stood behind an immaculate desk, tall, silver-haired, still carrying himself like the titan of industry he'd always been. You look like hell, he said, not unkindly. I feel worse, I replied. He didn't waste time. I've been watching the Langstons. Carter, Victor, Savannah. I should have stepped in sooner, but now it ends. That day, he showed me what real power looked like. Holdings, acquisitions, insider knowledge. He had already acquired controlling interest in Langston Corp through a series of silent buyouts. All I had to do was step in and finish the job. I did more than that. With the help of Ellie Cruz, our fiercely brilliant cybersecurity lead, and my best friend Lucas, we dismantled Carter and Victor's web of lies. Ellie uncovered doctored permits, bribes, and attempts to sabotage the community center. Lucas worked day and night building the legal case. And when the time came, we exposed everything at a board meeting, that felt more like a courtroom. Victor Langston was removed from power. Carter and Savannah were arrested for corporate fraud and conspiracy. I stood there, watching them as security led them out of the building they once paraded through like royalty. Savannah looked at me with tears in her eyes, whispering, "You don't understand." But I did. I understood the moment you trade love for leverage, you lose both. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. Read Global surged. And I had all the revenge I thought I wanted. But revenge has a short shelf life and an even shorter aftertaste. One night, as I sat in my new office, watching the lights flicker across the Hudson, Ellie walked in. "You ever think about what's next?" she asked. I did. I'd been thinking about it a lot. Not about destruction, but about rebuilding. So we did. The community center opened that spring. We called it the Haven. It became more than a building. It became a heartbeat in a forgotten neighborhood. Ellie and I grew close, slowly, quietly. She grounded me. She reminded me that strength isn't in striking back, but in standing firm when the world tries to shake you. 2 years later, we married in a small ceremony with city lights behind us and hope ahead. And Savannah? She served her time. To my surprise, after her release, she asked to volunteer at the community center. I didn't answer at first, but something in her eyes told me it wasn't another performance. Now she teaches art therapy there, quiet, changed, perhaps finally aware of the life she once threw away. 5 years have passed. The man I used to be died the day I opened that message on her phone, but the man I became, he's someone I can live with. Because real power, it isn't found in boardrooms or headlines. It's found in the lives we touch when no one's watching. And that is the legacy I choose. As I stand today in the heart of the Haven, the community center that started it all, I hear the laughter of children echoing through the halls. The walls are lined with murals painted by the very kids we built this place for. Their joy, their creativity, their hope, it's the most honest sound I've ever known. And it reminds me every day that from the deepest pain can rise the most beautiful purpose. Looking back, I don't regret what happened. Not anymore. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the fall. It broke me wide open, but in the space that was left behind, I found something greater. Clarity, strength, and a reason to fight for more than just myself. I built my life back, not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove to myself that I could rise without burning others to the ground. That love, trust, and kindness aren't weaknesses. They're the foundation of everything that lasts. I didn't just reclaim my name. I redefined it. With Ellie by my side, Lucas in my corner, and the people we've helped as proof, I know now that legacy isn't about what you leave behind in wealth, but in impact. So if you've ever been broken, betrayed, or brought to your knees by someone who didn't see your worth, take heart. Your story isn't over, not even close. Sometimes, the fall is exactly what we need to learn how to fly. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, inspired you, or simply reminded you of your own strength, please subscribe to Life Stories for more powerful journeys like this. Your next chapter might just begin with a single click. See you in the next story.